Hello and welcome back to another episode of Not Without My Sister, starring me, Rosemary McCabe, and in a supporting role, very small supporting role, my sister, Beatrice McCabe. Beatrice, how are you today?
I was doing fine, thanks, until you mentioned that supporting role. So I suppose, how about, Rosemary, you just go ahead and you do most of the talking. I'll just pipe in with a couple of supporting lines every now and then.
If your lines were only supportive, I would be delighted. Today on Not Without My Sister, we thought, in the spirit of the new year, new me, new you, new us, new everything, same old pandemic, that we would talk about all of the different random and bizarre things that we have tried that we were told would help us lose weight.
Well, I'd like to say...
Basically.
I'd like to say that I only have a few, but you actually do have millions. So I thought this would be an excellent episode. I will be supporting. I'll be supporting with little sarcastic comments every now and then. So, Rosemary, why don't you begin?
When we were talking about this the other day, I kind of started off going, it's just funny stories about Weight Watchers and I've already told them. And then I realised, you're correct. I've actually tried loads of different things because I'll try anything, but also because I was a journalist. So like a lot of the stuff people would go, would you try this thing out for, some of them would be like 12 weeks.
And I tried lots of things, Rosemary,
sure.
Not to be left out in my supporting role as supporting star actress, Oscar-winning star supporter. I tried lots of things because I worked in fashion. All the people who work in fashion try lots of weird things and do lots of weird things. And one of them was, even after all the fashion shows, to go away to a Swiss chalet where they just sat on IVs for 2.5 weeks and came back.
Did you do this?
No, I didn't. I wished I did. I was at home actually going on a proper diet and going on a proper diet means going to pizzerias, eating only one piece, drinking loads of wine and then saying things like, why am I not as thin as those guys on the IVs?
Oh my God, that sounds so awful and dystopian. Although I do quite like the idea of just like sitting still for 2 weeks.
Oh my God, it sounds amazing. I do nothing. I don't have to think about what I'm eating. You hook me up to something. It feeds me. I don't know though, I probably have way too much time to be thinking and then what would I be doing in my meantime?
No, you'd be reading your book. You'd be delighted. There'd be no kids.
I'd be delighted.
Be reading nonstop. You'd finally get to read all the books you want to read.
Oh my God, it'd be amazing actually. Yeah, totally. Bring it on.
I think the first one that I tried was I did a 12-week personal training thing with this guy who did basically white collar boxing classes. So we did kind of train like a boxer for 12 weeks, but I didn't actually do the boxing. I don't really know why.
What does white collar boxing look like?
Or is it I can't remember, or is it blue collar boxing? I can't remember. It was basically he did boxing classes for wankers who worked as accountants and solicitors. That was the idea. It was for people who thought they were too posh to do boxing.
Okay.
But boxing is keep fit.
Okay, go on. So 12 weeks.
That's kind of
did you stick to it for 12 weeks?
I think I did because I was very young then and I was working in the Irish Times and I was very oh my God, if I don't show up, it'll ruin my reputation or I'll get in trouble at work. And then as I advanced in my career, I'd be I'm getting this for free. If I don't want to go, I don't want to go. You know what I mean? My attitude changed as I got a bit older. But I went to all 12 weeks of that. And I remember 12 weeks of any training thing, I definitely got way fitter. But I think it was around the same time I started doing Bikram yoga. And I honestly think that's when I started to get sweatier too. Remember I used to sweat a lot.
You and Busy Phillips. I was looking at her today on her Lec Fit and I was watching all the sweat drip off her head and I was like, she's actually like you. Did we already talk about when you were downstairs and you dripped that big pile of sweat and Dawn actually came down and thought that there was a leak from the ceiling?
I don't know if we did talk about that, but whenever I do the Peloton here, the dog is on high alert and the minute I step off, he comes over and starts licking the sweat off my legs. Absolutely revolting. I have to shove him away from me.
Revolting. Okay, so wasn't there a time, didn't you go to Spain and do something with a donkey? That sounds bad, but did I make that up?
You're totally making it up about the donkey. So, sorry, I'm I'm starting at the beginning. That was the first one. That's like easing in, right? Then after that, I did one where I got invited to, I can't even remember what it was called, but it was this thing where you went out to this studio in Clontarf, you put on a wetsuit, and the wetsuit had like, if you imagine, it was almost like Edward Scissorhands. The wetsuit had like holes in it that got attached to hoses, right? And you zip up the wetsuit, you turn on the machine, the hoses would suck all the air out of the wetsuit, so it would be like...
Perfect for you.
No, well, not quite. Oh my God, I was sweating so much afterwards, actually. The hoses would suck all the stuff out of the wetsuit, and you'd be basically like shrink wrapped into the wetsuit, right? And then there were two different machines. There was a treadmill you went on, and the other one was you sat in this little thing, and it was basically like a cross trainer, but you were in a big barrel that heated up to a certain temperature. I can't remember any of the science behind this or what it was like. It was basically just meant to make you lose weight by making you sweat a lot, I think.
I'm just confused I'm confused by why you would need suction cups to make a wetsuit stick to you. Like, I've never been in a wetsuit that has not stuck to me. Like, massive suction.
This was like, so like the wetsuit was obviously already tight, but see, the wetsuit was dry going on, which like when you used to do those outdoor adventure things, they were always wet, those wetsuits. Gross. This one was dry, put it on, turned on the suckers. And I remember I thought I was just going for like a consultation, so I hadn't brought my runners with me. And she was like, get up on the treadmill.
Why would anybody think you'd need runners to go with your wetsuits? Just wondering.
Well, I didn't know it was a wetsuit. I can't remember what I thought. You know, it was like body sculpting or something. So anyway,
you thought this was going to be super relaxing. You thought you were going to be in a robe lying on your back in some like padded seat. Yeah. You weren't.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be like in the Swiss chalet, but without the IV, just like lying down with cucumbers in my eyes. So anyway, she was like, okay, now we're going to do the treadmill.
What's that word again? What's that word again? What's the English word? Cucumber?
Poor Ilaria Baldwin. Anyway, I stepped up on the wet. Oh yeah. So sorry, I hadn't brought my runners. I only had heeled boots. And I was like, sure, I'll just do it in my bare feet. Beatrice, you have not seen me with blisters until you've seen me with blisters from barefoot treadmilling for 30 minutes. My feet were red raw.
You literally get a blister the minute you look at a piece of uneven paving.
I know. And then after that, to add insult to like blistery, I had to sit into the tube and do the cross trainer thing in the barrel.
What? No, sorry. What? I had to sit in a tube and do a cross trainer in a barrel.
Not a tube.
Please
not
elaborate.
A tube. I had to sit. It was like...
Still in the wetsuit.
It was like you kept the wetsuit on, you got into this other machine where you did like you put your feet in the stirrups and did the cross trainer, but you were in a big barrel that then heated up. You know what I mean?
At what point did you think to yourself, I might say no. I might say I'll be back when I have my runners.
Oh my God, never. Never, Beatrice. Anything for a good story. I was like, this is mad. And I hopped in there. Then after that, I've definitely tried a juice. Well, I've tried a juice cleanse.
Excuse me. Back to that. Did it work? Did you lose tons of anything? Did you go back a second time?
I didn't go back a second time. I think she measured me after the first time. I was like, look, you've lost 2 inches off your waist. You know, this like after 45 minutes.
You were like just compacted into the tightest wetsuit ever.
Yeah, I'd just been like suctioned on a treadmill for 45 minutes. And I honestly, Beatrice, when she took that wetsuit off me, I was literally going like, she's going to have to burn that. Like, there's no way that's ever going to be washed. It was soaking wet, like horrendous.
I can't be so sorry, Hilton. So these wetsuits were just like, you never actually went into the water in these wetsuits. You were just...
No. It was just like a suit made of scuba. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't...
Oh my God, I'm going to get you for Christmas next year. If I know, I'm going to get you a perforated scuba suit for the Peloton. It'll be amazing. I know, look at you. You're like, oh, I might sweat enough to be amazing.
I'm like... That's not the worst idea in the world. Yeah, so I lost like 2 inches and I was like, oh yeah, great. And then like went home, drank a litre of water and it was and puffed like straight back up again.
What was the one where you lost like 72 pounds in 14 days?
So this is, listen, we're getting there. There.
Sorry, okay.
The next one I tried, and by tried is a very loose term here, it was a juice cleanse. Where I think I paid for like a week's worth of juices. You know, when you have like juice for breakfast, juice for 11s, juice for lunch, juice for dinner.
I've heard of it. I have to tell you the truth. Mine are more like, I'm thinking yours are like really good in the name of science that you don't understand, but at least in the name of science. Mine are in the name of like generally events that I'm going to or boys that I fancy, which is pathetic when I think about it now.
Well, listen, everything that I've done in my life so far has been in some way about boys that I fancy. So I'm sure there was a boy that I fancied at each of these stages that I was like,
good. You're way, that's way worse. It's science and boys. Stupid. Go on.
Yeah, like, well, pseudoscience. So I did the first day of the juice cleanse, I think. Actually, I don't even know if it was the full day. I did breakfast and I did 11s and I did lunch. And I was so bored because I just had totally forgotten how much... I'd never realised how much your day is broken up by your meals. I think I was working from home at the time.
1,000,000%. That's the problem with COVID. That there's nothing to do except like eat, because you're literally in your house the whole time. Like, I don't go to work. I don't get in the car. I lost a ton of weight before COVID, and now, you know, I'd gone on a diet right before COVID. I lost 35 pounds. Then COVID started. I was grand for the first 4 months, and then when I realised I was in this for the long haul, I was just like, pass me those
when
cakes.
You realised it was never ending.
Yeah,
I know.
And like now I'm about 10 pounds away from my beginning weight, so I'm still like, well, I'm 10 pounds down, but it's not quite as satisfying as the 35 I was at. But anyway, yes, but so much of it is, to your point, like, it's the routine. It's something to do, especially when like you have nothing else to do.
Yeah, and then in the afternoon I rang Liam. Basically I was just finding it very difficult, Beatrice, and I rang him and I was crying. Not about being hungry, but I was like just in terrible form. I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel terrible. And he was like, Rosemary, you need to eat something. And he brought me over a sandwich.
Liam is saboteur.
I know. So that was the end of the juice.
What was that? What was that? Do you remember there was your woman years ago when I lived in Milan? So that was like nearly 20 years ago, and she was that one on TV, and she was she a doctor? I don't know. She was like super skinny looking thing, and she was always examining people's poop.
Gillian McKeith.
Gillian McKeith, right. So she published a book about, like, you know, eat yourself healthy. And Julie and I, living in Milan, we were like, oh, this sounds amazing. And we lived right beside the market. So every, you know, Saturday and every Tuesday or every Thursday, whatever day the market was on, we would buy all of our vegetables and stuff there. So like we actually had very healthy, we actually did eat very healthily in Milan because everything was fresh and from the food, you know, from the market.
Yeah.
Do you remember I ever told you about
until
the time
I arrived and kept us all stocked up with focaccia and olive oil.
Oh, well, yeah. And actually, I learned a lot of my Italian there. It was like one of the first places I went down. I said, due pompini per favore. And they all fell around the place laughing. And instead of asking for 2 grapefruit, due pompelmi, I'd ask for 2 blowjobs. Due pompini. The whole
You never told me that.
Just fell around the place laughing. And I was like, oh, that's embarrassing.
Oh, my God.
Anyway. All this stuff, you know, it doesn't kill you, makes you stronger, etc. Anyway, so we went out, we bought Julia McKeith's book, and we went out and we bought tons of veggies, right? Well, like we bought to the recipe.
Yeah.
And we went home. And so we used to go to the market pretty early in the morning because that's when, you know, it started really early. And if you didn't go out early, everything was gone, right? So we got back and we would be hauling all this stuff up to our apartment, and we were on the 8th floor with no lift. Oh yeah,
and there was no elevator.
No elevator. So we were on the 8th floor. We hauled everything back up. And then we got to grating and grinding and pulping all these various vegetables. And by 11 o'clock, we were like, and her whole day was like, make a smoothie, drink the smoothie, have a snack of like 14, you know, bits of, I don't even know, like parsnip. Lunchtime, have this smoothie and this juice blend, eat 2 grated apples, like literally we were exhausted. We got to about 11 o'clock and we were like, this is exhausting. We have been prepping this food for hours, right? And then... then we go anyway. Then we're prepping all day. Like the whole day was just prep. We were like, well, how are we supposed to do this when we're at work? Like, there's just no way, because the whole day was prepping the food that you then would just consume and still feel starving after. At about 3 o'clock, Julie goes, I have to go to lie down. She goes, I just don't feel good. Right? You just reminded me this with this Liam story. She goes, I'm not feeling good. She goes, I just feel kind of emotional. She goes off, she's crying, right? She goes off to the bedroom. I opened the book from Gillian McKeith. It's like, don't blame yourself. Cleansing is an incredibly emotional experience. You will feel sad. You will feel tired. On day 4 or 5, it's entirely normal to feel these kinds of emotions. We're like, it's hour 4. And the 2 of us were almost in floods of tears. Anyway, suffice it to say, we didn't make it very long. We spent a ton of money on those vegetables, which I'm sure we didn't eat. It was too much work. It's too much work. That's why I like, thank God for Jamba Juice or these juice bar places, because it was too much work.
Well, like, I think the only way you can do those things, which brings us on to the 1 week period in which I lost 17 pounds. The only way you can do those things, which, like, also I'm not advising, like, it's not a healthy way to lose weight and it's not a sustainable thing either. But I went on this thing called Number One Boot Camp, which was this weight, like basically like a fat camp, but for rich people. So it's this like 5-star resort I went to Ibiza, but they also do one in Cornwall. And my friend Elaine Crowley, who presents Elaine on TV3. She had gone to it loads of times and really recommended it. She'd gone to the Cornwall one where like it looked grim. It rained all the time. So when I was freelancing at the time and I'd pitched it to Irish Country Magazine, and then I reached out to Number One Boot Camp and was like, you know, could I go on this thing in Ibiza, which is great, very, very glamorous. So myself and my friend Eving, who worked for Evoke.ie, like the Irish Daily Mail at the time, the two of us went together. So we shared a room and stuff, which was kind of handy because they'd kind of been saying to us like, oh, you know, we're not sure we can fit, like we don't have any single rooms, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, it was grand. We went together and we arrived, like we went to, I can't even remember, like we arrived on a Saturday or something and we knew we were getting weighed that day. So it was real like the first day of Weight Watchers mentality where I was like, it doesn't matter what I eat today because today is the start, like tomorrow is the start of the rest of my life, right? So I think we went for a pizza, went and got some ice cream and then got a taxi to the resort, literally going like, yeah, weigh me out, like I'm going to be super heavy and I don't care. It's great. I'm going to be so thin.
Ridiculous.
And literally, so the whole thing was we did 4 hours of cardio every day and they gave us 1,200 calories to eat. And on the first 2 days, they didn't have any coffee. So for the first 2 days, I had the world's worst headache, was also like raging because I was so hungry. And I also just felt like I was going to cry all the time because we were getting shouted at by this guy who used to be in the army and was really like hamming up the, like, now. Like,
I bet you were like, so glad I wrote and begged for this.
Oh my God, it was but like also I was kind of going like, I don't need to take this seriously. Like I didn't pay $2,000 for this. And I'm also not here because I'm like really want to lose weight for my wedding, which like some of the people there were like, oh, I'm getting married in 2 weeks, or, you know, I have a big work event, or like, it just seemed to be people who had loads of money. And then like several of them, about 5 of them, this was their 3rd or 4th time coming.
But like, do you actually want to be shouted at by somebody obnoxious? Do you know what I mean? I think I'd be so much better off if people were nice to me while they were trying to make me do things.
Oh my God, he was awful. So like the first thing, like the very first day, his whole thing was like telling us that one of the biggest problems people have is that they put their hands on their hips and they lean on one hip and it's really bad for your posture and your alignment. And if at any point he saw anybody with their hands on their hips or leaning to one side, he would make us run down the road to this rusty pipe, like actually a rusty pipe.
To a rusty
and
pipe.
Run.
It's like the monks on Skellig Field. I'm going to make you run up and down the stairs. And if you fall into the ocean, on your own head be it.
Oh my God, it was terrible. And he'd make us run down the hill and then run back up the hill in the sweltering Spanish heat.
Well, what would happen?
And then
did you have to like lacerate your leg on the rusty pipe so you needed a tetanus shot? What's the point of the rusty pipe?
It was just because it was get over the rusty pipe. It was just because it was like a marker on the road, right? And then whoever was last would have to do something like 10 push-ups or like 20 jumping, like in front of everyone.
But like, what if you just were like, no, I'm not doing this?
See, nobody did. And I did kind of wonder about that at one point. But like, there was a woman on the course, like on the week that we were there, who had a baby a couple of years ago, and when she'd had the baby, she'd had a really traumatic birth and had like really bad pelvic separation, and had to have like, I think, an episiotomy. It was talking to him, was going like, I have issues with my hips ever since I had my child, and blah blah blah. And he seemed really sympathetic on the first day, and then after that he just kept going like, suck it up, like these issues are nothing to do with childbirth. They're all to do with, like, look at how you're standing. You have your hand on your hip. This is your problem. He was obsessed with this hand on the hip thing. And he was like shouting at her. And there was I'm
not laughing. This is not helpful.
Oh my God, it was awful. There was another guy who was this like really tall, quiet Swede. And he kept calling him a pufter. He kept going like, come on, run up the hill, you fucking pufter. What are you doing? Like, it was horrendous.
I'm actually not laughing. I'm just more like, what year was this?
It wasn't that long.
I hope you're going to tell me 1962, because like otherwise it's not acceptable.
No. It's actually about to get worse. And there was another woman there who was the only Asian woman on the trip, and he called her Lucy Lou for the entire week. Like the only Asian woman he knows.
I mean, I just watched Endeavour season 4. Excellent television show if anybody hasn't seen it yet. Excellent. Young Detective Morse. But like, this literally sounds like this could have been a camp that he got sent to, because it's incredibly politically incorrect. Obviously set in, I think, the late 50s, early 60s, right? So you would not expect it, but like even back then, even watching it, I'm like, this is terrible, right? They were talking about women's lib, right? And even Morse, who's like, he's the hero of the show. He's like, what are you looking to be liberated from? And he kind of can't wrap his head around it, you know? But
sounds like Dad.
Yeah. But what crimes has Dad solved? None. So anyway, but this was
Good
when?
point.
This was what year was this? But like 20 years ago, I hope you're going to tell me? When you were
No,
15?
this was
when you were 15.
2016.
Really?
This was 4 years ago, honestly.
Was it really only 4 years ago? You sure?
Yeah, it was 4 years ago because it was just before I started working as a personal trainer. And it was basically, this was the end of, so I had started lifting weights with Neve like a year before, like 6 months before that. And I had lost a ton of weight and was like really smug and delighted with myself and was eating basically like, I basically had like orthorexia.
What's orthorexia?
Orthorexia is like an unhealthy obsession with healthy eating.
Oh yeah, but you've always had that, like on and off, and an unhealthy obsession, or I don't want to say unhealthy, and an obsession with working out on and off.
Yeah,
Way back to like
suppose.
age 18 or 19 when you couldn't come and hang out with me when I would come back from living abroad because you had to go to City West to do your workouts.
Oh, to do my spin class.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose like I have always thought that like I'm very all or nothing.
Yeah,
like,
but I mean, it could be worse,
like,
right? I mean, in hindsight, I think now like it could be worse. I could be like, well, she's always been obsessed with doing drugs. Like, could be worse.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, at least I managed to give up the smoking. Anyway, so this was basically, I had been eating super, like, quote unquote healthily, but I'd basically been eating meat and vegetables for breakfast, lunch and dinner for approximately 6 months.
And those protein balls you were loving.
And protein, yeah, and gross protein balls and protein shakes. Out me uxter. And I went on this starvation camp for a week and literally came home and ate, I'd say, non-stop for approximately 6 months. Like literally ate Bombay Pantry 4 times a week at least. Like it was honestly as if I had been tortured. What?
I said that defeated the purpose.
Oh my God, 100%. But I just, basically the first day we arrived, I remember for breakfast they gave us like, they had made a frittata. And they cut, you know the way, like, if you have something for breakfast and then you're still a little bit hungry and you're like, I'll just have a little sliver. The sliver was the breakfast, basically. Right? And so the schedule was like, you'd get up in the morning, you'd do an hour and a half of cardio, you'd have your breakfast, which was a sliver of frittata, or you'd get like, there was quinoa porridge one day, which was very nice because it felt like warm and filling. And then you'd go off and you'd do another hour of cardio and then there'd be a snack at 11. And I remember the snack on day one because I shared it on Instagram stories. I remember people messaging me going, are you fucking joking? Was 1 strawberry and 3 almonds in a little cup.
Well, think about Barack Obama. The other day, Mother said, I love how he pronounces his name, Barack. How Michelle pronounces his name, Barack. I'm just obsessed. It's not Barack. It's not Barack Obama Plaza. It's Barack. Anyway, think about him and his rigorous approach to his evening snack was something like, was it 7 or 9 almonds per evening? Full stop. That was it. I was like, and every time I count out 7 almonds or 9 almonds, I go, there's 7. And then I go, there's a couple more for good luck, right? So that's why I'm not good at these things, right? But I also
That's why you don't have a service station named after you.
Oh, exactly. And why I wasn't president and why I don't have a $50 million book deal. Many things.
You could still be president, not of America.
Not of America. Thanks, Rosemary. But, well, that's true. I mean, if Joe Biden is now going to be, what age is he, 78? Right, so I mean, I've got a couple of years to get back home and get
You've
cracking
got a lot
on
of years. But basically, by the end of this week of high cardio exercise and starvation, I'd lost 17 pounds.
But as they say, was it just not all water weight, like as they say?
Oh, listen, loads of it was water weight.
No, it wasn't.
And also,
it wasn't. It was obviously like you were starved and you were literally. It was like being on The Biggest Loser, where they work out for 7 hours a day and eat nothing, and then they're like, we're all like, oh my God, they lost 27 pounds this week. Of course they did, right? But like, it's not sustainable. Not yours. Yours wasn't intended to be sustainable. But that's the whole problem with like something like The Biggest Loser. That while it's great that like they're all delighted with themselves at the end, how do you then go back to a normal life where you have a normal life, and where do you find the 8 hours a day? Who's going to like support you while you're working out 8 hours a day, right? And making your chef meals. But I find
but that's actually like, sorry to interrupt, but that's actually what I was going to say was that like that kind of thing, if you could live like that forever, like that's how celebrities live. Do you know what I mean? They have a personal trainer, comes around, bosses them around, shouts at them, and they have a chef.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, I also find like, because obviously I've done lots of healthy eating programs, and I also have joined the gym, not to the extent that you have, and I haven't become a personal trainer and lifted weights and done all the things you've done, but I have made, lots of healthy efforts. I've kickboxed in Paris, and
you've definitely lifted the odd weight.
I lifted the odd weight against my will, I'll tell you. I joined Equinox in Brooklyn. I remember the guy, like, just I honestly felt so demoralized by him because he just kept saying things like, oh, it's going to take at least 3 years to correct, that posture. It's going to, well, I was talking to my partner last night about the problems with your shoulder, like things I didn't even know I had. It was like working out with a women's magazine, I will never forget the very first time I opened a women's magazine and saw a whole thing about labiaplasties. And I was like, literally, is this another thing I have to worry about now? And then, but I mean, that really was only written about maybe in the last 10 years. Prior to that, it was not like regular consumption of women's magazines. And it's like every time you read a women's magazine, there is another thing that you need to be working on, according to them. Even the other day,
true.
What did I read yesterday? I think I bought Vogue, American Vogue, and it was like, this is your opportunity now during lockdown with another 6 months of a pandemic to get that surgery that you've been looking to get. And here are why, surgery has gone up 50% or 150% since lockdown. Because
in the pandemic?
Yeah, because you can stay home and recover. Right, and I have to tell you, same thing occurred to me. I was like, if I actually got that neck job that I'm always talking about now that I'm on Zoom, and that's part of it as well. Everybody's on Zoom hating themselves.
Looking at themselves,
right? But back to food. But I mean, I've done all those things, not to the same extent, but I have definitely done every single type of diet, right? I've done, what's it called? The 30, what's
Atkins?
it called? I've done Atkins. I've done...
Oh, the Whole 30.
Whole 30. I've done all those, right? I've done Weight Watchers.
Have you done the cabbage soup diet?
I did that. I didn't do that one about, cabbage soup diet was gross. But the point being that I find that if you really genuinely are trying to eat healthily and not just do a fad thing, what always hits me on about day 5 is how much chewing is involved. It is so effortful to eat healthily. You're chewing. I'm still chewing. I'm only on bite 5 of my lunch. Eating fatty foods is so unctuous and luxurious. Butter and cheese just melt. They're easy to swallow.
They just slide down. You're making me feel a bit sick now.
Ice cream. I know. When you think about it that way, it's gross. But the effort of eating healthy foods, and I know all the healthy food eaters will be like, that's what I love about it. I mean, I love crunch of foods too, but by about day 5 of eating healthy foods, my jaw is killing me. It's a bit like smiling in America. I'm like, I am.
Oh my God, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
This is really triggering for me though, because I'm remembering the chicken chipotle wrap I got yesterday in Starbucks. I was like, this is healthy. And it came with a load of baby carrots and I ate about 3 of them and then I was like, bored now, and threw the rest away. It's like, this is such a big effort. It's very crunchy.
I did appreciate the text exchange we had yesterday where I said, what are your healthy plans for the new year? And you said, don't know yet, still thinking about it, but I'm definitely eating more healthily. Today I had oatmeal, felt very smug. I said, oh, that's great. Then you said, had Starbucks sandwich for lunch. That may not have been so good. And then what did you say next? What did you have for dinner?
Two pieces of Terry's chocolate orange. What did I have for dinner? Ham fried with brown sugar.
Oh my God. Listen, it's not the new year yet. As Maeve Madden would say, go
mashed
Queens,
potatoes and red
enjoy
cabbage.
your 10 days off. I'm enjoying these 10 days off and imagining that I've been working out up until these 10 days.
Oh, no, sorry. Before my dinner, I had a huge slice of pudding. Brandy butter.
Oh, the pudding was delicious. To anybody who checked out that recipe and had any way of understanding it, it was top notch, even better than Mom's. Sorry, Mom.
The rest, that's a deep cut. The recipe we're talking about is we did a YouTube video, a cooking tutorial, which I think you'll agree is Nigella worthy, and it's on our YouTube.
Nigella worthy.
You may
I
check
also
it
have
out
to work
search,
on my
not without my
posture,
sister.
as I discovered from that video. But yes, it was top notch. Pudding was delicious.
I also make the worst faces. No wonder people used to send me screen grabs of me making terrible faces when I was on TV. I just make a very dramatic faces.
No, but something you said back there though, way back when as a supporting actress today or actor today, I'm just going to weigh in now with you made a comment about when you first arrived in Ibiza, you were a bit hangry, right? You got a bit angry, a bit peeved because you were hungry, and it reminded me of I always it's a point of pride for me that even though I was going to say I'm often hungry, that's not true. When I am on the rare occasions where I find myself to be hungry, I don't think I get hangry, right? I don't know why this is a point of pride because definitely Don is like a hangry maniac. But anyway, I remember when I worked at DVF, we had an intern who was he's now extremely successful. So loved him anyway. But it's funny now thinking that he was our intern. But he used to go on all these mad, crazy diets. And he went on the Beyonce, what was it? Cider vinegar.
Oh,
and
the maple syrup
lemon
and cayenne
juice.
pepper or
yes,
something. Cayenne
and
powder.
he went on that, right? And he was our intern, okay? So like he was supposed to come in every day and do kind of the things that we needed him to do, right? And on about, so he was like, hey girls, I'm on this, Beyonce diet. And we were like, oh, great job, you go for it. On about day 2, he was like, I'm on this diet. Don't talk to me. Right. And this was like a 15-day diet or something. For about 15. So like for the next 15 days, we were absolutely terrified to talk to him. He was an absolute demon. He had zero memory, right? He couldn't, like, you'd literally be like, hey, do you mind making this photocopy? And you just see him like circling the room with a kind of a dazed, extremely raging look with this piece of paper in his hand. And then coming back to you with like, what did you want me to do with this again? And he was absolute, and we were so terrified because he was so angry with like the sheer hunger. We were so terrified to say like, hey, you're actually supposed to be doing work here. You better cop on. And behind the scenes, we were like, this is out of control. Like your man's done nothing for 2.5 weeks, but he lost a ton of weight, like was delighted with himself and then like snapped back to normal. But it worked. Anyway, it worked, but I wouldn't recommend it because he was an absolute maniac for those 2 weeks.
You know what? On about I think it was day 3 or 4 of Ibiza. Like, the thing is, I went into it at a slight advantage because I had been basically like a fitness maniac for 6 months beforehand. So I went into it the fittest I'd ever been. So even though it was impossible, I wasn't crying the way like if somebody made me do it now, I think I'd be crying every single day. Whereas at the time I was super, super fit and I was like, okay, I can do it. Like, this is really hard, but I can do it. It's okay. But I remember on about day 4, I looked over at one point and Eve was looking like basically a bit like she was close to tears. And I remember saying to her, I was like, will we watch a movie? And we sat down and we watched Burlesque with Christina Aguilera and Cher. And I swear to God, it saved us from, because like the two of it was just so miserable. And it was literally like every day going, oh my God, we have to do this again tomorrow. I remember there was one day where they made us do this exercise where we had to hold, basically between 2 of us, we had to hold weighted bars as if they were stretchers. And the instructor was telling us that he had to do this in his army training. That basically, if ever one of your comrades was injured and you had to carry them on a stretcher to safety. So this is what we had to do. We had to go running up and down these hills in Ibiza, carrying these poles. And like you couldn't drop one because it was like your friend on a stretcher. And he spent the whole time going like, keep your patient up. Come on, he's dying.
Maybe it actually, I hate to say it to you, but like maybe there was something to doing this in Cardiff or wherever it was where the weather was desperate. Because like, was it not worse running up and down a mountain in the boiling heat?
It was so hot.
But like, wouldn't you have been better doing it in the wouldn't you have been better doing it in the wet?
Yeah, I'd say actually doing it in the rain would have been a bit of a laugh because you all would have been slipping everywhere and everything. Whereas this was just like grueling. Like, that was probably part of the joke that they're like, you think you're getting luxury in Ibiza, but this is going to be it was awful.
Oh, I remember I took up running as well. I did take up running and I was actually really enjoying it. Well, I mean, sorry, I tell a lie. I was hating it. I was hating it. Running, jogging, whatever. I was absolutely hating it. And I was always reading about this like runner's high, or like this runner's euphoria. When does it kick in? Never is the answer for me. And this when I lived in Brooklyn.
The myth of the runner's high.
And I was running around, where did I live? Red Hook. And I was running around like Cobble Hill and Red Hook. And I was, every day would get my couch to 5K thing. And I was doing kind of 3K, right? In the training of it. And I was like, this is an absolute nightmare. And I'd get out. But I was really determined. I did it 4 or 5 times a week. There was like, no matter what. I remember like even being incredibly hungover. I was like, I've got to do my running. Like I was really dedicated to this. I was going to get to this 5K. And then one day I went out and I went down by the IKEA in Red Hook. And there is a kind of a really nice pier area there, like really nice by comparison to like the rest of where you're running. And I remember I ran down by the pier and I was like turning back around and I did this like really kind of professional in my mind. It felt really professional, like swing of the leg. I swung around. Well, let me tell you, swinging when you're running is not professional, right? Swinging your leg when running is not like control is professional. Controlling your leg as you turn a corner is professional. Allowing your leg to swing willy-nilly is not professional. And I ended up in physical therapy for the next 7 months. And I was just like, how? Like, how? That one moment, I remember that one moment of pure euphoric freedom as I swung around the corner. I was like, finally, ow. ow. And then I had to go limp home and then go into physical therapy. And I never ran again because after that, I've always had knee problems and ankle problems. And I was in a boot for 6 months after that. I forgot about that.
I remember.
Yeah, so let me tell
nightmare.
you, like, you know, these things seem easy, but they're not. Just saying.
Well, especially, like, I think these things are only easy if you start when you're about 12. I feel like once you get into your 20s and then you try to get into sport, your body's going to let you down sooner or later. What?
That's incredibly defeatist. You know what Dad said to me recently? I said, Dad, I'm really worried about, like, I can't remember what it was. Something I was really worried about a couple of months ago. It's obviously not that big of a deal because I don't even remember what it was. And I said, I felt like a lot of pain in my leg this morning. And he goes, you know what? A friend of mine, a wise friend of mine said to me, you know, once you turn 40, any morning you get out of bed and you're not in pain is a good morning. Well, we'll keep that now for the aging episode because it was honestly one of the more demoralising things I've heard my father say to me after the cankles, the thighs, and what else? What other things has he criticised? Oh, the time when he looked at the photo of me in Brooklyn when I had just had a baby, and he goes, oh, you're looking pretty chubby in that picture, Beatrice. It might be time to go on a diet. Yes, father's never felt bad telling the truth to his daughter, his eldest daughter. Not to you. He obviously thinks I'm really strong and can take it, but I'm not. Cried.
Oh my God, Beatrice, this is the same dad that I said, does this outfit make you look fat? And he put his hands on my shoulders and said, Rosemary, an outfit does not have the power to make you look anything other than you are.
What an asshole. Dad, you're a dick sometimes.
Although it was like such an inventive way of getting out of lying, or like, you know what I mean?
An outfit does not have. I mean, the thing is, the really annoying part is like, he's right.
He's correct.
Right? Totally true. But
correct.
like, that's not your job. Your job is not to be the truth teller. You are supposed to be the comforter, the fatherly hugger.
You're supposed to love and adore and like imbue your children with confidence and like the sense that they're beautiful. When did he ever tell us we were beautiful, Beatrice?
Well, I mean, Rosemary, at least in your case, you asked for that. Like, you literally said, Dad, do I?
Good point.
You weren't just like
fair.
leaning up against the kitchen counter when he just slowly looked at your ankles, shook his head, and then said, such a pity you got my ankles. Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Well, I'm just going to daintily, balletically just dance out of the kitchen. Thanks for that.
I'll just be pirouetting off into the distance. That I took up running for a while as well, jogging for a while as well. And it basically immediately got shin splints where my entire body was like, not for you. And I remember I went to this physical therapist guy to talk about getting orthotics because I obviously was like, I'm a committed runner now, having run 2 kilometers straight. I was like, this is it. Running is for me. And I remember Mom saying to me, I don't know. I mean, I never got shin splints. Like, I've just... Well, what do you have to be running for? I've never got into any of these things and I've never got injured.
On that note, I'd like to thank whoever your Instagram follower is who DM'd you recently to tell you that Mom had fallen over in Art Clock. I just thought that was the
awful.
power of social media, though. Like, that was amazing because Mom and Dad did not message us.
Listen.
So if anybody else sees our parents out and about doing dangerous things, feel free to message us.
If you see our parents out and about smoking behind the bike sheds, you let us know immediately.
Or looking in any way shifty, let us know.
Actually, you know what? Seeing as they're supposed to be cocooning again, if you see them out and about at all, please slide into our DMs and let us know because they're supposed to be staying in. But listen, I'm trying to... Oh, you know what? I also did... I got invited on a triathlon training weekend in Westport or something that I went on.
Did you?
Or was I training for a triathlon? No.
No, what did you
do?
do?
Did I then
Was it
imagine
good?
I would do a triathlon? Yes. Oh my God, it was horrendous. I went with Claire. Huge mistake. Do not do these things with your determined, sporty friends. Like Claire, I mean... is not the person who'll like cycle slowly with you so you're not on your own. You know what I mean? She's
but
the person who's like...
I thought you were extremely fit. Was this not at a fit moment in your life?
This was not at a fit. This was in between fitness moments. No, I was not fit at all. And at one stage, I basically toppled off the bike because we were going up a hill and I couldn't... basically, the hill was so steep that I couldn't cycle and the bike just like fell. I just fell out like just... because it wasn't moving, you know what I mean?
You know,
just completely toppled
I've
off.
had some very, very unfortunate moments with bikes as well, but in Dublin, like in Dublin city centre, when I lived in Rathmines for with our cousins as I was in college in NCAD, and I used to cycle in. Well, I used to walk in, right? I used to enjoy that. It was like a 35-minute walk in the morning if you're in a hurry. I had to cycle on the bike. I had to cycle, right? Full stop. Anyway, and one time, to your point, I was rounding a corner, but I was a very nervous cycler, and I was rounding a corner, and I rounded it.
Cyclist, Beatrice.
What did I say?
Cycler.
I was such a nervous cyclist. Anyway, that I was rounding a corner and I slowed down too much, to your point. I slowed down so much that I just toppled over onto the path, right, which is really embarrassing. But in my defense, I'd like to say that it was because the week prior to that, I had been stopped in traffic behind a truck, like at a red light, and the truck obviously did not see me and started to reverse onto me. Right, so the truck reversed, and all these cars behind me were beeping, and I had nowhere to go, you know, and my bike just toppled over. I toppled underneath it, and the truck kept reversing and finally stopped as the cars behind me, like somebody jumped out and ran up to the truck and told it to stop, right? Like, literally, I could have been dead on Westmoreland Street. Was it Westmoreland Street? Yes, Westmoreland Street. Absolute disaster. So no wonder I was nervous. And then there was a third time. I had a third accident, at which point I said, being a cycler is not for me.
I fell off my bike on the Lewis tracks once, and these two guys came over and kind of picked me up, and I immediately burst out crying, and then they both like immediately let go and ran off. I think they're basically like, who's your one? And then this really nice woman stopped and was like, are you okay? And then it turned out it was a woman I used to work with.
That's a great story. But what happened down in the triathlete west of Cork where you were cycling, and Claire was obviously offering moral support to you?
Westport. Claire was brilliant. We did this swimming, we did swimming training in the pool in the hotel, I remember, and they basically at some stage realised how bad I was and gave me a head start. So it'd be like, and Claire was in a rage, like, this is ridiculous, why is she getting a head start? And he was like, just give her a bit of a head start there. It was great. And at one stage as well, we had to go like on this mad run across these dunes. And this was like also deep in shin splints time. So I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing the run part. Triathlon's not for me. Don't know why I even said yes to it.
When I was down in Mexico with Don and I, when we were in the early stages of our love affair, and we went down to Mexico for a weekend away. And I remember we went out to the sea, we went snorkeling, right? But they gave us life jackets. And so I was like, how am I supposed to snorkel with this life jacket? Because I was planning on diving. And the guy, I was so macho, and the guy comes out and he's like, hey, mister, to Don, he's like, you can take off your life jacket. You look like a good swimmer. Now, Don, I say this lovingly because he's probably not going to listen this far down to the episode, is not an excellent swimmer. Like, he's a grand swimmer. I'm a much better swimmer than Don is, right? I think. Anyway. And he's like, you look like a great swimmer. Takes off Don's life vest. So Don's like snorkeling down to the bottom of the ocean, seeing all the great fish. And I'm at the top trying to you know, just will myself a couple of feet underwater against the tide of this jacket.
I'm imagining like a bobbing cork just popping straight back up to the top again.
Such a rage. But then luckily for me, God, as Mother would say, God did me some justice, and Don accidentally left his ankles peeping out from underneath the sun umbrella on the beach and burned his ankles to an absolute crisp. And had to apply aloe vera lotion. Had to actually lie in the bedroom for one full day with the pain of his poor, like, just literally, I'd say probably 2nd-degree burn ankles. It was appalling. We found a picture recently of us on the jet ski, and he just has these pink socks.
Come here, why didn't you just take off your own life jacket?
Oh, yeah, great question. Why are we so obedient? Why are we, I'm including you in that, but like, why am I so obedient?
I mean, why when he said, right, off down to the rusty pipe, did I not just go like, rusty pipe up your hole?
Why? But like, could he see all the way down to the rusty pipe? Could you not have just jogged a tiny bit and then turned around?
No, he could see, and he used to stand up on the hill and shout at you. Like, if he saw that you were trailing behind her, that you were walking or anything, he'd be like, pick it up, Rosemary. It's terrible. But, like, at least he wasn't calling me puffed her. To be fair. Oh my God, I was desperate. It was so bad. Like, there were just so many times. But you know what as well? Like, it was almost like he was playing this really, really hateful character. And in a way that made it easier, because I think if he had been not quite so awful, I would have been crying. Whereas I hated him so much that I was like, I do not want him to see me cry.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
No, I don't. No, I would have been floods of tears.
My rage was,
I'm literally
was
crying. I'm
propelling me
almost
forward.
crying just thinking about having to go. If you literally handed me a ticket for this now tomorrow, I'd be like, you must hate me, and I'd be crying. But I actually wouldn't be
Another
going.
one of our snacks was half a banana. I just remembered.
That's what I give my children. Are you saying that's not fair? I actually genuinely wouldn't have. Well, actually, one of my children told me today he doesn't like bananas, doesn't like the feel of banana on his tongue. And I thought that was an extremely good observation. But like, I nearly cried
Fair.
at Christmas Day when I opened my stocking and I found from you a pair of workout trousers and a workout top. So, I mean, that's not even...
You wanted nice workout gear.
I do, theoretically. But when I saw them, the pressure almost became too much to bear. Not even a trip to Ibiza and a monster to shout at me. Just cute gear to look cute in. Do you know what I mean? I definitely would have been in floods of tears.
Oh my God, it was terrible. Oh.
So what did you learn about working out in any of these scenarios, or just crazy diets and exercises?
Well, I learned that fad diets don't work. No, I mean, any of these things, even when you were talking about the Beyoncé maple syrup and cayenne pepper diet, right? She did that, like, allegedly right before either a tour or a video or something that she was had to, in inverted commas, lose a huge amount of weight in a short amount of time. But do any of these things, like, quote unquote, work? It depends on what you're, like, the thing in Ibiza, right? If I had been going there for a week before I wouldn't necessarily consider a wedding something. I mean, listen, there's nothing that I would
Rosemary,
actually...
Even if it was a wedding, it would only have worked if it had been the day of your return, because immediately you started scoffing everything in sight. So that wouldn't have been helpful.
Yes, true. I remember my ex-boyfriend picked me up from the airport and I was like, we're going straight to this cafe, like literally from the airport, and like picked up a whole lot of takeaway food and then sat at home with all these boxes in front of me and just ate. But no, like, I suppose what I mean is if your goal is to lose weight temporarily for one specific occasion, like even these things where it's like you're going to detox. I remember doing another thing that involved like mad ear acupuncture and like drinking this juice every day that was made of like grapefruit, raw garlic and ginger. And like, you know, like all the stuff that you weren't allowed to have nightshades, and you could only have either alkaline food or, you know, like these kind of mad like pseudoscience-y diets. I remember doing one of those as well, where you're like, you know, at the end they're like, oh, like we look deep inside your ear and it looks much less clogged. So you've definitely detoxed. You're like, what? Like, what? Or like the like acupuncture, she'd go, if that hurts, it's because your liver is working really hard, or your liver is overloaded. And then at the end of the week, she was like, see, that's probably painless now. And you're like, yeah, it is painless.
I think that's interesting,
Amazing,
honestly. I mean, I do think some of that is interesting. Okay, so I'm going to sum up for you.
Yes, please.
Okay. If you're looking for a quick fix, these things are great, right?
And you have $2,000.
Oh, and you have a ton of money,
Minimum.
and you can also survive being shouted at. These things are grand. If you're looking for a long-term fix, we have not provided the solution in this podcast. If you are a professional, and this is something that you can do every single day because you have an entire crew around you, makeup artists, chefs, workout people, etc., you're probably wiser than we are and you don't need our advice. But we think that this is probably manageable for you also. Right? Rosemary is not quite sure if she's hit upon her dream exercise, but she thinks it's weightlifting. I constantly think that mine is swimming, but I can't actually convince myself to get in the pool and swim. So it may not be that, and I've yet to find it. It's not running or jogging, according to Rosemary.
I didn't think this episode was about exercise. I thought it was about like fad diets.
Yeah, but you talked a lot about exercise and fad exercise.
It's true. Yeah, because they kind of come hand in hand.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? There was another time during my like extreme fitness where I went on a press trip to Cannes, and I remember being like, oh my God, this is actually really easy to do. But again, it was because I had like all my meals were paid for and I could just order salads and I had nothing to do, so I could spend 3 hours a day in the hotel gym.
So basically what you're saying is if you were J-Lo, any and all of these would be potentially manageable as long as you didn't also have to film a movie or record an album at any point. Just to be a famous person is manageable. But to have to be a famous person and do anything outside of that is probably more challenging.
I was about to say, I'm sure J-Lo doesn't I'm sure even when she's working, it's not like a lot of the working is, and now you have 2 hours with your personal trainer, or now
I'm
you have
sure
X,
it is,
now you
'cause,
have
like,
Y.
I'm
But
sure
then
they
I was
have it all
thinking,
worked in, because isn't that how your man Chris, what's his face, Chris Guardians of the Galaxy?
Pratt,
Yeah, how he got like super skinny, like that's part of, or super fit, like
part
that's
of the
part of
job.
the contract. It's like you'll work out for 4 hours a day.
Yeah, but then I'm thinking about Busy Phillips, and from her, like, back to Busy, and from her Instagram story, she seems to be like on set from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day.
Yeah, but she doesn't
Seems
seem to be
head-wrecking.
working out those days. She seems to be working out all the other days.
She worked out on Christmas Day, Beatrice.
I saw that. And she doesn't seem to be working out though. She doesn't seem to be working necessarily 5 days a week. I'm not sure. Like it seems to be very sporadic.
No, probably not.
Do you know what I mean?
This is now an investigative Busy Phillips podcast. Tell us if you have any insider info.
Anyway, with all this said, what words of wisdom do we have to offer you? Not much. These things, starving yourself and working out a lot will help you lose weight and get fit. But do we think you can maintain them over the long run? Not necessarily, right? Like it depends on your lifestyle and what other things you've got going on. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that is fair to say. But I also don't think, I think a lot of people talk about losing weight and exercising as if those are the routes to health, but they don't take into account the fact that there are more facets to health than physical. So there's like emotional health, mental health, and these things long run, anything that you do obsessively and that you do like in the spirit of deprivation is not going to be healthy.
Okay.
In the long term.
But that's extremely serious. You're now getting into a really serious end of the conversation where that's not where we went with this whole thing. But you are right. I do agree with you.
But I just want to say that. So like, I don't want this to come out as if I'm going like, we should all try a fad diet because we should all lose weight.
Rosemary,
I
don't think any single thing we said here would encourage anybody to do any of the things we have done. I don't think
listen,
it sounds like...
that maple syrup Beyoncé thing sounds grand. I love shouting at people. I love doing very little work. I could happily do that. 2.5 weeks of like shouting at people and doing no work. Fine.
Starving. He was absolutely
Of course
starving.
I couldn't. I couldn't even do that juice fast for one whole day. I had to have a sandwich.
Yeah, I couldn't do it fast either. I used to be terrified when they would go around with those like those permission slips at school for like a 24-hour fast. I'd be like, I couldn't do that.
Oh my God, I never did it. I always did the silence instead.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do the fast. I always get too weak.
I mean, and when we think about the fact that like you chose silence over fasting, that says a lot.
When we think about the fact that there was a sponsored fast for people who who are living in food poverty, that's also questionable.
Yeah.
For another podcast, not our podcast, a serious podcast.
I feel like the goal was a good one. Just maybe the path there was questionable.
Yeah, for sure, Beatrice. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Beatrice, for making the time in your busy schedule of working from home
to support you. You're welcome, Rosemary. Thanks so much for leading this one.
You're a wonderful support. Thanks for thanking me. I'm really glad that you're grateful. Really grateful for your gratitude. Thank you all for listening. Please rate, review and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this podcast. Tell a friend, and if you're listening to this in a podcast app and you'd like to take a screenshot and share on your Instagram stories, that would be very, very, very much appreciated.
Bye.
Bye. Not Without My Sister is produced by Liam Garrity, sound and original music by Don Kirkland, and our original illustration is by Lindsay Nielsen.
Not Without My Sister is a proud member of The Warren, the home of great Irish podcasts, as is my podcast, the Dublin Story Slam podcast. You can find them all over at thewarren.ie.